Hello friends, and welcome back to this knitting and lifestyle podcast. My name is Amy, and this is episode 9, I think, of the Postcards from the Homestead podcast. This is a video podcast where I like to share what I've been up to. We talk a lot about knitting, crochet, general crafting, craft magic. I also love to do a tarot or oracle card pull for you, and that is where we're going to get started today. Today I have my illustrated Herbiary deck, and we're going to pull a card to see what the general energy for today is. I love to work with oracle cards and tarot cards to see what the energy is, see where I might need to focus my energy. Quite often in life, there are moments and things that we just don't acknowledge and don't see, whether it is a conscious or a subconscious block. So I like to pull a card to help guide and focus my energy. So that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to start. So I do also have another channel. The channel is called Amethyst Moon, and it is dedicated completely to oracle and tarot card readings and a little more spiritual related than this channel is. So if it's something that interests you, that will be linked down below. So let's see, where does our focus need to be today? On today's podcast, I have a few crochet and knitting items to show you that I have completed, and I also have a knitting project which is just frustrating me beyond belief. So I wanted to talk about what I do when I am frustrated with a project. So whoops, let me get that. That's that's interesting. The cards, it's funny. I know a lot of people don't believe in cards, don't believe in oracle or tarot or any of that, but I was literally just telling you about what I do when I'm frustrated with a knitting project. And the card that came out is the card Dandelion, which, if you can see up at the top, if it's going to focus, is the card of perseverance. A perfect card for when we're feeling troubled and when we're, having a hard time. Dandelions are such amazing little flowers, and they have such a bad reputation, right? So many people pull them out. They think they're just terrible weeds. But the dandelion perseveres. You can find dandelions growing in the weirdest place. We actually have a window well just outside of this window that is full of stones. There's no dirt under the stones. It's just like it's a lot of stone. I think it goes right down the foundation. And yet there's a dandelion growing in there. And it's a big one too. It's been there all summer. I've left it. It's okay. It's there for the pollinators. But it's amazing how they grow in such difficult conditions. You find them popping up between the cracks in the sidewalk in areas where you feel like nature has just been squashed down by the hand of man. You find dandelions creeping up. They are nature persevering through what we have laid down on top of it. So dandelions are also great. I mean, the greens are great in salads. You can make them into salves, both the greens and the flowers. There's just so much you can do, whether it be medicinally or magically, with dandelions. Unfortunately, I don't get to work with them too often. I do buy dandelion greens occasionally from my grocery store when I see them. I like to put them in smoothies just for that nutritional punch that they pack. But because of where I live, I have a dog, but I also don't have a yard. So if I did have a yard, when we had a yard, I couldn't guarantee that there wasn't dog pee on them. And even now, if I went out to, there's a bunch of fields by our house, but there's a lot of dogs in our neighborhood. So, you know, I am not going to risk dog pee on my dandelions that I might want to use or consume. So I do buy them from the grocery store when I can, but I would love to have a nice clean patch of dandelion that I could work with. So that is our oracle card. Let's get straight into the projects that I have completed this week. So I am a big fan of the low waist movement and you know, just living kind of a more simplistic, natural kind of life. And I needed some new dishcloths. The dishcloths that I had, they've basically given up being a dishcloth. They're that old. They are, you know, they're threadbare. There's holes. Like they needed to be replaced. They needed to be retired. So I bought some Bernat Handicrafter. This is, where's my ball band? Here we go. This is in the colorway Crown Jewels, which I like it, Crown Jewels. And I made two different patterns. So this is a waffle stitch pattern, super simple to crochet. I crocheted this using a 6.5 millimeter hook, I believe. Chained 26, I think. I think it's a multiple of 3 plus 2. So 24 gave me 8 repeats. Yes, I chained 26. And once you get the foundation row, it's just a 2-row repeat, and then I just did a single crochet border around it. So I made myself 4 of these. And I wanted to do this because the waffle stitch has this wonderful texture, which just gives you a little more scrubbing power when you are doing the dishes. So that's the texture on it, and then the back looks like that. So I have made 4 of these, and then I also made 4 of these. These are knit dishcloths. If you watched my last vlog, you saw me making these. You start at one corner, you do knit 2, yarn over, knit across. That's the repeat. You keep going until you get to the size that you want, and then you do knit 1, knit 2 together, yarn over, knit 2 together, knit across. And you get these wonderful square dishcloths. This was actually the first knitting pattern that I ever learned, and actually the same kind of yarn, this Bernat Handicrafter. And again, I made myself 4 of these. One of them turned out bigger than the others. This was the one I was making when I was chatting in my last vlog, so it kind of got a little bigger than I was anticipating it to be. Not by much, but you can definitely see the difference there. But this is just a very simple pattern. My son keeps asking to learn to knit. We try, he gives up, tries again. But I think once he gets the hang of it, I'm going to get him to knit a bunch of these because they're so super quick. They're easy, they're forgiving. And sometimes when you're just learning something, you want a finished project. You want a finished product that you can hold in your hand and actually use. So I would like him to try and make one of those. And I still have all of this left. This was, where did I just put that ball band? don't know where it went. Oh, it's underneath the dishcloths. So this was a 350 gram skein. It was a pretty big, ball of yarn. And this is what I have left. I'd say it's probably enough for 2, maybe 3 more dishcloths. I find I can't work. This is 100% cotton, by the way. I don't know if I said that. I find I can't work with cotton for so long because it doesn't have the bounce that other yarns have. Even cheap acrylics have more of a bounce than this. So I find this actually quite tiring on my hands. But I do enjoy the dishcloths that it makes. I find that this yarn holds up really well. I mean, some of the dishcloths that I had, when was the last time I went on a big dishwashing spree? I think it was probably 7 years ago. My friend had asked me to knit her a set of rainbow dishcloths. I thought it was the best idea ever. She wanted 7 different colors so that she would have, she would be able to change colors depending on the day. So Monday was blue, Tuesday was green, Wednesday was yellow, that kind of thing. So that she knew if she had changed the dishcloth so that she could wash them every single day. And so I had knit her, I think I knit her 4 of every color. And so it was a lot of dishcloths. I actually traded her for some board games. It was a wonderful trade. And when I was doing all of that, I had ordered all of her yarn, and I had ordered it from KnitPicks. What's their dishcloth? Like Dishy, I think is what it's called. And nothing against the KnitPicks yarn. I liked it. It was fine. It held up fine. But I do prefer their Bernat Handicrafter for dishcloths. It is just a workhorse yarn. I want to try like the peaches and creams or the sugar and cream yarn, but I never really see it in colors that I would like. I see people using it in all sorts of beautiful colors, but I've never seen it in person to be able to pick up. So those are my finished objects, 8 dishcloths. And then we have what has been the bane of my existence for the last week and a half. I cast this on pretty much right after I did the last podcast, and looks pretty cute, right? This is the EcoCom stripes and then just the EcoCom in the solid blue from Michaels. This is the same yarn that I used in my shawl, and I had so much left over, so thought I would make a sweater for my son since he outgrew the one that I made him last year. So I cast this on. I had intentions of having it be like a fold down turtleneck. And I cast it on, did the ribbing, and then I knit it, and I was watching some YouTube videos. I was actually watching the Fat Squirrel podcast. And I was just going and going and going. And then I realized I had made the body way too big. So I had to rip it back. And then I got on track and was doing it right. And I tried it on my son. I actually had, well, you can see I've ripped back. I had about another 2 inches of the body knit, and I tried it on him. Body fits perfectly, but the turtleneck was just not long enough. It just hit him at this weird spot on his chin where if he wore it just up, it was a little too high, but it was also not tall enough that it wanted to fold over. So I attempted to undo the cast on edge and pick up my stitches, but this yarn does not want to unravel easily, especially in reverse. So then but this yarn just does not frog very easily. It is, what is the makeup? It's 60% recycled polyester, 15% polyester, 15% acrylic, and 10% wool. But it has this halo on it. I don't know if it'll show up on the camera. Oh, it's going to get stuck in my ring splint though. So because of this halo, it really does not like to rip out, especially not from the top. Like I was trying to unpick it and it was just not going. And I just wanted to get my needles back in to knit it longer. So then I decided I would just stick my needles in along the base of the body. So just, where it's plain stockinette. And I thought I would just, I would unpick it from there, just take the whole collar off. And that did not work either. It does not, like you can see, like these are all live stitches and they are not going anywhere. They do not want to rip out or frog. So I am going to unravel this entire sweater that I've been working on for a week and a half and start over. I might cast something else on in the meantime, just because that is frustrating me to, it's frustrating me. And I don't want to deal with it. So that brings me to what I kind of wanted to talk about in today's podcast. And that is, what do you do when a project isn't going the way that you want it to go? Now, I do have the privilege of this project being essentially scrap yarn. I had bought it for a different project I had left over, so that's why I was using it. I do also have the privilege of time. There is no deadline for when that is ready. It is the end of August, and we typically get snow. We typically get a snowfall mid-September, though just about an hour west of here has already had snow. The joys of living in the mountains. Sometimes you get snow in August, but yeah, about an hour west of us had snow already this year. But we typically don't get our first big snowfall until September, and usually towards the end of September. And then it typically melts and it doesn't really get cold until November, but then it's brutally cold until May. So I do have time. I can knit a sweater for my 8-year-old in about 2 weeks. It's taken me about a week and a half, and that's included frogging, probably 4 inches of sweater and then re-knitting all of that, only to realize I needed to frog it all again. So this sweater will probably take me a month total, but even then, if it takes me another 2 weeks or another 3 weeks even, I still have plenty of time for the sweater to be used. I don't like putting myself on a tight deadline. And in fact, you'll see that over the next couple of podcasts, you'll start seeing Christmas items showing up, because I need to get started on my Christmas knitting, because I would like to be done it by November so I don't have to worry about it. I'm also the type of person that starts Christmas shopping in September, so I don't have to worry about it in December. But so when I get frustrated with a knitting project, I like to just give it time. I'll put it in the naughty corner and I will just leave it. Now I am going to completely frog that sweater. I'm going to completely rip it out and just put it in a bag. I have my owl bag just sitting here empty, waiting for something to go in it. So might as well actually just, put that away. There's actually scrap yarn coming out of the end of that from my last shawl that I made using that. But so it'll just sit there until I am ready to deal with it. It's pissing me off enough right now that I am ready to frog it. There's no emotional attachment to it. I will just rip it out. I'll put on a podcast. Maybe I'll listen to an audiobook and I'll just pull it out. Other times, when projects are bugging me, whether they're going a lot slower than anticipated or whether I make mistakes. For one thing, if I make a mistake that is not super gigantic. Like if I drop a stitch and I can go back and I can pick that up. I can go up in a row. But if I make a mistake in a lace pattern and there's like one row that's off, I'm usually not such a perfectionist that I will have to go back rows and rows and rows. I will just leave it. I will count it as a learning experience and I will move on. I'm not selling my work. I'm not doing anything professional. I knit because I enjoy knitting. This shawl that I'm wearing, there's mistakes in it and it's okay. None of them are structural issues. Like nothing's going to create a big hole or anything. But, there's some places where I forgot to do a yarn over, or I did, garter stitch where I wanted to do stockinette, or, whatever. Like there's mistakes in it and it's okay. No one's going to know but me. Even if I showed you close up this shawl, which it doesn't really work because it's getting dark and it's a dark shawl. It's fine. It's just a shawl. And it's for my own comfort, my own pleasure. I'm not selling it. Even then, if I were selling it, I do accept that they are handmade goods. And handmade does not mean perfection. Heck, mass manufactured things do not even mean perfection. This skirt that I am wearing, it is mass manufactured and there are so many little threads. There's even holes where I can tell like their bobbin thread did not catch. But, oh, my kids are having fun downstairs. Excuse the noise. But, it's just, I like to go into a knitting project because I like knitting. I'm not going into it expecting this perfect final project. And I think this also is where we can come back to this dandelion, the perseverance card. I have been knitting for long enough that I know it's not worth my time to get mad at a project. I can put it aside. I can come back to it. I can keep going. I can push through. I can listen to my body and decide, you know what? Maybe I don't want to knit this. Maybe that sweater, I'll come back to it in 2 years when my 5-year-old is big enough for it, right? Or maybe I'll just scrap it completely. Sometimes we don't have to persevere. Sometimes we don't have to push through the pain. If something is really not working, whether it's the yarn that's not working for you, whether it is the pattern that's not working for you, whether it's the combination of the yarn and the pattern together, sometimes you don't have to persevere. But I also find it easier to persevere when you understand why you're doing what you want to do. So for me, I like knitting. And so it's a lot easier to push through mistakes and redo it because honestly, once I was done this sweater, I was probably going to cast on another sweater. So why not rip this one out and just start another sweater? It's essentially what I'm doing. And that pattern is just a modified flax by Tin Can Knits. Very simple pattern, great pattern. And if I had actually paid attention, though they just have a little ribbing collar, but if I had paid attention to the pattern, I wouldn't have had to rip back the first time because I wouldn't have made it too big. So just trust yourself and trust that you're doing what you want to do because you enjoy it. If you don't like knitting and you're getting frustrated because you don't like knitting, then maybe knitting is not the hobby for you. Knitting takes hours, it takes dedication. And if it's not something that you're completely dedicated to in, your body, mind, and spirit, then maybe it's not for you at this time. And that is perfectly okay. We do not need a world full of knitters. Maybe crochet, maybe other yarn crafts, maybe sewing. Maybe you're just not crafty, and that is perfectly okay too. There are a lot of hobbies that I would like to get into, but I know it's just not up my alley. It's not something that I'm into. So I just pay other people to do that for me. If you don't like knitting, but you want knitted objects, pay a knitter and just get it that way. So I think my top tip for when you get frustrated when you're knitting is just to remember why you're knitting. If you're knitting because you like knitting, then keep knitting. It doesn't matter if you have to rip it out. In fact, if you have to rip it out, that just means you've got more knitting to do. So keep on knitting. This is a chamomile blend, by the way. Absolutely delicious. I love herbal teas. So I think that's it for this week. It hasn't been an overly productive one because of how many times I've had to rip back this sweater, but hopefully next time I will have a finished sweater to show you, whether it's that one or a different one, or maybe I'll have some Christmas knitting. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.